This is the Nikon J1 full detailed review. This is Nikon's first mirrorless system. They came out with two models, a J1 and a V1. The J1 does not have all the features that the V1 has. The V1 includes an electronic viewfinder and the ability to hook up an external flash. The Nikon 1 system is a very small camera set that features a large sensor size that creates excellent image quality compared to a standard point-and-shoot camera system that you buy in Best Buy or wherever you buy it. You can see the size of this comparative to an iPhone. The iPhone is actually larger in length than the J1 and about the same width. When looking at the depth of this, the Nikon 1 system is thicker. Now it comes packaged. This is the Nikon 1 system is an interchangeable lens system, so it's a lot like a digital SLR, and it comes packaged with the lens if you buy the kit. And this comes with the 10 to 30 millimeter is what I purchased. It's a standard zoom lens, and to install it you just take off the cap by rotating it and align the marker to the top of the camera and then rotate and lock. Now the caps match the color, so you can buy these in a variety of colors: red, silver, black, even pink. But the cap matches the color of the lens, and typically you buy the lens to match the color of the camera. So to get started, you turn the camera on by this on switch here. So it's an easy, non-intrusive on switch, and you can see that a warning pops up immediately on the LCD. To rotate the zoom ring, to extend the lens. Now this is important because the lens won't operate in its current state. It's in what's called a locked mode state. So to release the lens, you hold this button down and turn, and you'll see you're now into. Now once you re-release this, you can't extend it back to the locked position. So now you're free to zoom the camera as you please. From 10 to 30 in this particular lens. Now 10 millimeters is fairly wide. It's equivalent to a 27 millimeter in full frame digital SLR or 35 millimeter film standard, and the 30 is equivalent to an 81 millimeter. So it's a nice range that you have available to you. This is not a VR lens, so it does not have vibration reduction. They do make vibration reduction lenses. They also make what they call a pancake lens, which is a fixed focal length lens, and it's a 10 millimeter f2.8. Let's get started talking about how this thing operates. So I'll turn it off briefly, and we'll go to the back of the camera, and you can see that it has quite a large LCD with not a lot of buttons. It has a play button, so after you take your picture, let's go over that first. To take a picture is quite easy. You just hit this button here. To record a movie, if you're in movie mode, you hit record button here. To pop up the flash is very nice. You just slide this guy up and the flash pops up. Real convenient, and it actually looks pretty neat from the front with this little flash sticking up like so. Now this is your dial selector. You have a variety of modes here, four specifically. One is the movie mode. The next one is your still image mode. Now these are the two most common modes. The third is called a smart selector mode, and what that does is takes a series of shots and then lets you decide which the best one is. It's good for group shots. And then the last one is like a movie type mode where it takes a picture and then records a 1 second video of motion, and it applies a theme to it, and you can select from different themes. I didn't find it too necessary, but I haven't explored it to its full extent either. So now let's take a look at some of the other key options here. We have 4 buttons over here, and this is your playback menu or your display. This is your display menu. This is your menu button, and this is your delete button. It also features a dial that can be rotated to scroll through menus. This dial also can be clicked on either side, left, up, down, or right, to navigate through the menus. Let's take a look at a menu. To get into the menu here, you hit the menu button down here. And you'll notice on the left you have 3 different options. This is your playback menu. So when you're reviewing pictures in play mode, you can go to this menu for different options. You can see they have a variety of options. Then this is your shooting menu. So when you're about to take a photo or in shooting mode, you can change a variety of settings here. The last one is your setup menu. And these are more global options where you can format your memory card. These are key settings that are related to the camera. This menu system is standard amongst all Nikon menu systems in their digital SLR market. So let's take a look at the shooting menu, which is most common. Now the menu reaction speed is quite quick, so it's easy to use. By default, the shooting mode is in an auto scene mode, scene auto selector. And with that mode, you don't have full functionality. You can see that some of the options are grayed out. So you do not have full functionality to change settings in this mode. When you go to the more professional type settings, P, S, A, and M. P is automatic shutter and aperture, and S is shutter priority with automatic aperture. A is aperture priority with automatic shutter, and then manual is manual both shutter and aperture. These are more common amongst more serious and enthusiastic photographers. Let's start with P mode. Now you have the option to adjust the image quality. This is your level of JPEG compression or your RAW compression. So you can choose different options through that menu. You can adjust your image size, and in continuous allows you to take a single frame, a continuous frame, or electronic high, which is more like a video mode, and it takes successive shots from the video. Metering, you can adjust your metering. You have matrix, center weighted, or spot. I leave mine in matrix most of the time, and adjust my exposure compensation. White balance is the color of the light in the scene. You can change variety. You can also calibrate. In there, you can if you hit to the right, it asks you, do you want to measure the white balance in the room, and you can hit yes, and then calibrate your white balance. Auto is pretty sufficient for outdoors. Indoors, I might manually switch it to incandescent. This camera does an excellent job at white balance. Your ISO sensitivity is an important one. They give you 3 auto options, which is very convenient if you don't want to shoot past ISO 400. Now, ISO is the amount of noise that you can get in a shot, and if the light gets dim enough, the sensitivity can increase. You can increase the sensitivity in your sensor by adjusting this setting here, which is called your ISO sensitivity. The higher the number, the more grain and noise you're going to get in the shot, but also the faster you can take the shot so you don't blur the image. So it's always a balance of where you want to shoot. If you shoot at 100, you're going to get the best quality shot, and this is good for outdoor use or on a tripod. And the quality compares to that of digital SLR. It's quite excellent. But you also have the option of a range from 100 to 400, so the camera will decide the ISO but will not exceed 400. In this case, in A800, it won't exceed 800, and then in A3200, it won't exceed ISO 3200. The camera is usable up to about ISO 800, and it starts to break down, but but Nikon has implemented in their Xpeed 3 processing, different processing, including RAW. When you exceed 800 ISO, it starts to do some level of noise reduction, including both JPEG and RAW above 800. Picture control is pretty standard through most Nikons. You have standard picture control, which is typical. Neutral is less color saturation, less contrast, and it's good for most people shots. Vivid is huge amounts of color and very contrasty images. This is good for some outdoor stuff. Monochrome is obviously black and white. Portrait is a mode that accentuates people's skin tone, so it's good for shooting people. And landscape is good for shooting landscape. You also have a custom picture control setting where you can save modifications to picture control. If you move to the right in standard, you can adjust a variety of settings that are deeper down. From there, you can save your settings to your own custom picture control. Color space, I'd leave mine in sRGB, but they also provide Adobe RGB, which enhances colors but can cause confusion to most amateurs. And I would leave it in sRGB. The internet standard is sRGB, so when viewing images on the internet, you're going to see sRGB color space. Active delighting is increasing or really compressing your dynamic range into your photograph, and it's a good feature by Nikon. It brings up a lot of the shadow detail. I leave that on. Long exposure, noise reduction. You can leave this on or off depending on if you want to noise reduce a long exposure. High ISO noise reduction is pretty important because you do get a lot of noise coming from this camera at around 3200, and this helps out. Any noise reduction is going to soften the picture and reduce sharpness, but it's also going to get rid of that annoying color noise that comes from higher ISOs. Vibration reduction currently is set to active, but it should be set to normal for most typical use. If you have a lens that supports vibration reduction, normal is usually the setting you want to use it for. Active is more for when you're actually in motion, and say on a moving truck. But normal is sufficient for most uses. Focus mode, you have a variety of focus modes. Autofocus A determines whether to use autofocus S or autofocus C automatically. Autofocus S is when you hold the shutter halfway. It locks the focus, where once the focus is determined, it locks the focus, and then you can fire your picture after recomposing. Autofocus C continually, as you hold it halfway, continually focuses depending on if the subject moves in or out of the it changes distance essentially. Autofocus area mode, this I prefer it to be on single point, but most people would leave it on auto area. And then additionally, this selects auto area selects the closest priority subject that's in there. Single point selects just a single point. And subject tracking is good for sports. If your kid plays soccer or something, it'll track the subject as it moves through the frame. Face priority allows you to allows the camera to recognize facial expressions and put focus on faces. Built-in autofocus assist light is on, and this is an interesting light. If you look at when it attempts to autofocus, it puts out a nice bright green light. Let's see if I can get it again. Oh, it's not lighting up for me, but it does light up a nice green light that's pretty bright, but it's better than some of the Nikon digital SLRs, which light up a bright white light. But that's definitely a good feature to have on when you're in dim lit situations, because you will get focus with this light. It's very bright. Let's go through the play menu now. The play menu allows you to delete a photo, create a little slideshow, rotate. Rotate tall allows, if you take a camera in portrait mode, it will rotate the image when you want to view the image. DPOF print order is for when you attach a printer to this. You have to have special printers. Protect will protect you from hitting delete twice, and won't let you delete the image until you release the protection. You can create a rating system with this and rate your images. I don't know how to go back. And you can rate your images, and that's a nice feature, because actually when you're in the playback menu and you want to increase your rating, you can rate the image right here by hitting the F button. So that's an option as well. I like that feature. Resize, you can resize the image, crop the image, and you can edit a movie if you take a movie with it. Now your setup menu is pretty straightforward. You can reset all the options in the camera to factory default, format a memory card. Slot empty release lock is when you forget your memory card and won't let you take a picture, or mistakenly think that you have a memory card in there and accidentally take pictures and not have a memory card in there. This is a welcome screen. You can turn that off or on. It's defaulted to off. You can adjust your monitor brightness. You can put a display on, a grid display, when taking a photo for composition's sake. Sound settings, you can turn on and off shutter noises and autofocus and self-timer sounds. Auto power off, you can adjust this. This is important because the battery life significantly is affected by the LCD screen. So it's not like a digital SLR. You have your LCD screen on, and you're occupying a lot of battery power with this guy. The remote mode, you can use an ML3 to trigger the camera. The assign AEL button, you can change what this button does. This button's located right there. It says AEL AFL. You can just set it to exposure lock or focus lock. So you have an option for that, to adjust that button. The shutter button AE lock. So this would, if you hold this halfway down, if you hold that halfway down, you can lock the exposure. HDMI device is for hooking up HDMI. 60 hertz flicker reduction is for the power systems with lights, and you can leave this on. Well, either 50 hertz for European standard or 60 hertz for North American standards. Reset file numbering will adjust your file numbering and reset it back to 0. Time zone and date. One thing to note about this time zone is that it does adjust for daylight savings time, unlike most Nikon digital SLRs. And that's a nice feature that they added because it was lacking in some of their other cameras. Language, you can change your language, and auto image rotation. I leave this on so it can tell how I took the image, either in portrait or landscape mode. And you can check your firmware version through firmware version, and that's it. That's the whole menu system. So I just wanted to touch on two other buttons that are up here. The F button is a function button, and depending on what mode you're in, you can select different functions. So for example, in still image mode, you can choose single frame, continuous, or electronic high right on the fly. If you're in movie mode, you can change to HD movie or slow motion. And if you're in the scene mode, you can change the theme that you would like. It plays music. So anyway, you can do that. And this guy up here, when you're in play mode, allows you to zoom in on the image and zoom out. When you're in video mode and you're set to manual, this guy can adjust the shutter speed. You can see that the shutter speed is increasing with the video. You have full manual control of the video with this camera. You can adjust the aperture by turning the dial, and you can adjust the shutter by moving this up and down button. It's a excellent video capability capture. If we go into the menu for that, you do have a variety of options to change. Now I leave my exposure mode on manual for video, and you have a variety of movie settings. You have 1080 at 60i, you have 1080 at 30p, or you have 720 at 60p. The motion looks really good at 720 at 60p, and I'd recommend that for handheld. For 30p at 1080, I would recommend that either on a tripod or on some sort of professional mount. And then the rest of the movie settings are similar to your camera settings in still picture mode. And you can change your picture control just the same way you can in a picture for the movie settings. You have some different movie sound options. You can turn the microphone sensitivity adjustments, and you can have noise reduction on or off. And pretty much it's the same system. To record a movie, you hold it halfway until you grab focus. So I'll grab focus here, and now that I've locked focus, I can hit the record button. So the record button's over here, while the the focus button is there. So now that I've confirmed focus, I can hit record, and it starts recording a movie. And in this particular mode, we have 7 minutes and 20 seconds to record a movie at 1080i, 30 frames a second. At 1080p, 30 frames a second. It also gives you an exposure adjustment measurement when you're in manual mode to see if you're overexposed or underexposed based on the metering system in the camera. So we can darken it, and you can see, by increasing the shutter speed, we can see outside. The maximum shutter speed is, I thought it was 1/8,000th, but according to this, it's 1/16,000th of a second. When in still picture mode, I don't believe that's true. Now the functionality. So if we want to, let's go over some of the internal settings. So in here, you can push exposure lock, and down below you can control the flash. And you have a variety of flash options. You have slow rear, that fires the flash at the end of the exposure. Slow fires it in the beginning. And slow what slow does, slow flash, is it takes the picture as it would expose without the flash, and then fires the flash at the last second to highlight the subject. This is slow with red eye reduction. And then the top two modes are standard flash for fill flash, or flash with red eye reduction on. So that's your flash control. That's the interior bottom button. Now these buttons are harder to get to, because you have to. Sorry, these buttons aren't that hard to get to, because you just hit the left, right, up, or down when you're in shooting mode. So your timer mode here is 10 seconds, 5 seconds, 2 seconds, or you can do 2 seconds with the remote trigger, or you can just fire the remote trigger. The remote usually sells for about 18 bucks, but you can get them on eBay for as cheap as, I think, 6 bucks. Over to the right is your exposure compensation mode. So you can adjust your exposure compensation on the fly pretty quickly. Clearly, Nikon has a good system here on how to adjust the camera settings on the fly. This rotation dial is excellent. It gives feedback as you scroll. The up-down features of it are well put together. They work well. And the OK button, obviously, as long as you got small fingers, you can press the OK button, and that works pretty well too. Overall, the usability handling of the system is well thought out, and it really works well. The only thing it does probably lack, according to some, is a grip in the front. Some people like to have a little better grip on the side, but keep in mind that this is a very tiny camera. It's the size of most point and shoots, and you don't have a lot of options to put a grip on something like this. So this is the review of the Nikon J1, and it's definitely a camera worth looking at. The image and video quality are excellent and comparable to that of a digital SLR. Compared to the D5100, the J1 does have less quality. It's not as sharp. It doesn't have the ISO range that the 5100 has. But this well exceeds any point and shoot camera, and exceeds most of the digital SLR cameras of up to this point in time. This shoots better than a D40, a D60. It's an excellent camera, and it should be worth considering. To shut everything off, you want to rotate this guy back into the lock position by holding this button, and then you want to put your lens cap on. And that's all you have. That's the Nikon J1 camera.